To those whose lives relied on the quality of their weapons, the difference could be crucial. You never knew when you would be ambushed by monsters in this world. Weapons and armor, with good quality, could be their life-saving tools. During the founding festival, Kurobe's exhibition caused a stir among the public. There were even many people who wished to purchase his work. We were still considering that point. We planned to decide after doing some more market investigations. The Guardian on the 10th floor would drop rare-grade equipment, one of the best masterpieces crafted by Kurobe's disciples. While it was far from Kurobe's work, it was still a high-grade item when compared to the average gear on the market. Adventurers, naturally, would want better gear. No wonder Basson was so happy about it. After all, for an average grade weapon, as long as its quality was nice, its price would also be 10 times higher than the average ones in the market. Moreover, for special grade, I had been told that it could go as high as 50 times the market price. As for rare grade, it was all up to luck whether they could get it or not. It was rarely produced, and it wasn't something you necessarily would be able to buy with money. Obviously, there would be people who get obsessed with the Labyrinth and try to come back for more. Basson and his men were already promoting for us at the tavern. Hey, check this out, people. This is the sword that is worthy of me skills. Just like that, Basson and his posse were bragging with his weapon at every opportunity. The news that the 10th floor's Guardian would drop rare-grade equipment began to spread among the challengers. The news also began to reach the ears of the merchants, as well as the members of the Freedom Association across the continent. We never expected all these people wishing to become rich overnight would flood our nation. This was what led to the latest situation within the Labyrinth. I really needed to thank Basson and his party for promoting our nation. That said, rushing straight into it was never a recipe for success in the Labyrinth. After all, those who weren't willing to listen to our instructions were always beaten by people who finished their tutorial missions before challenging the Labyrinth. Anyone with a bit of brain would know that the right thing to do was to listen to the instructions carefully first. Now, there were a lot more people who would do their tutorial missions seriously and receive their training on the first floor. The challengers were able to utilize the new knowledge they learned and apply it on the spot. There were also counters that sold various utility items, and this brought in a small fortune on its own. Moreover, a few days after our revamp of the Labyrinth, there were teams that made their way to the 5th floor. The 2nd floor was merely very wide, and up until the 4th floor, most of the traps were just for show. They were not exactly malicious in any way. As long as you sketched maps of the passages, it was a piece of cake to reach the 5th floor. That's why it was a result that we expected. From the 5th floor onward, it was up to the challengers' abilities. The lethality of the traps increased, and they were ranked D and above monsters roaming around the area. On top of that, we also began to raise the chances of treasure chests containing more expensive items. I do hope they will give it their best. While I was cheering for them, the people who made it to the 5th floor quickly got into tough fights. It was likely just because of their exhaustion. Having to be on guard against monsters all the time would easily exhaust someone mentally. Many people returned to the stairs temporarily to use the resting zone. The business of the inns on floor 95 had been booming as well, which was exactly what we wanted. Later, there were challengers that started making it to floors 5 through 8. The adventurers from different nations' Freedom Association branches had arrived as well. Among them were many skillful adventurers who were contracted by noblemen. The town had been bustling with life. People were discussing strategies with excitement. Because of the second group of people joining the battle, the morale of people who fought first was raised as well. It was then that some people began to cheat, ignoring proper rules of engagement, and began to sell maps publicly within the Labyrinth. Some people were probably super bad with direction like I am. Something like the Labyrinth couldn't be conquered with strength alone, that's why I understood why they wanted to cheat in this way, but I hope they would just find companions to team up and assign each other's role appropriately together. That's why we were broadcasting, both inside and outside the Labyrinth, that we would constantly change the internal layout. There were sad moans coming from the challengers all over the place, and many who just wouldn't stop complaining about it. But I was the Demon Lord, I was in no way obligated to listen to their opinions. I hoped to make them realize, sooner rather than later, that they wouldn't be able to use maps not made by themselves. Essentially, if you didn't make maps yourself, you would be unable to tackle the structural change of the Labyrinth during your conquest. In a sense, this was a friendly reminder for them. I suppose this is what they call tough love. The frequency of the layout changes was around once every 2 to 3 days. It would take at least a couple hours to break through one floor. It didn't seem plausible that they'd make it to the checkpoint on the 10th floor without encountering a change. That's why the change in the layout of the Labyrinth had many benefits. Challengers would start to strategize properly and give up on buying and selling maps. There would probably be people starting the conquest as soon as the layout change began, and try to sketch and sell maps within the same day. Those people could do whatever they wanted. We integrated this feature so as to prevent cheaters, and I was greatly satisfied with the result. However, we couldn't underestimate our challengers, either. The adventurers from the Freedom Association began to challenge the Labyrinth as well. There were many who were capable caster off the elemental magic auto-mapping. Exploration became extremely easy for them. These adventurers from the Freedom Association sure are different. Not only were they used to battling monsters, but their techniques were also very skillful. Moreover, their strong suit was their division of roles. The Assassin party only consisted of combat-type individuals, but the parties who joined later had well-thought-out structure of members. Against monsters, there were raiders who specialized in combat. The traps and mazes were handled by explorers. There were also knowledgeable treasure hunters. The balance of a team was highly valued, as expected from adventurers who knew how to learn and adapt. They completed their missions with ease and challenged the Labyrinth over and over. The people who were good at exploring ruins were also good at disabling traps. They were relatively calm when stumbling upon treasure chests. They were also more cautious compared to bodyguards or mercenaries. They had been displaying work ethic beyond our expectations. And they understood the rules almost instantly. I was fortunate that we didn't make the Labyrinth too easy. And so, a few days after the different teams began to come in, there were already people who made it through the 10th floor. The morale of challengers was greatly boosted. They were studying the strategies of the people who came before them. Strategize carefully and progress through each floor gradually. Once a floor was beaten, the news would spread quickly. People then started to imitate their strategy. I suppose people were actually selling information about strategies. Should I praise their resourcefulness? So now that they realized selling maps wouldn't work, they began to sell information instead. About that, I did want to commend their efforts. We wanted the atmosphere to become livelier as well. The active performance of the challengers also became a topic of discussion among the townsfolk. Shops, inns, restaurants, the news traveled from one to another. There were legendary stories of tragedies, comedies, and more. It was then that one story in particular was gaining popularity. There was a team that was progressing at lightning-fast speed. They had a balanced team of 10 people. What their team did to level up quickly was by sending one person to join another team that had already made it to floor 10, register himself at the floor 10 checkpoint, and then utilized a return whistle to get back to the entrance. From there on, he rejoined his actual team and would start immediately from floor 10 and onward. We were already expecting such things, that's why we felt fine about it. Their progress had been shockingly fast, nonetheless. It only took them a short span of 3 days before defeating the Guardian on the 20th floor. These guys were truly capable. Each of their abilities were up to rank B. Their entire team was close to rank B+. Moreover, the 10 men's cooperation was extremely well coordinated, making their actual strength closer to rank A-. It was almost impossible for me to not question their innocence, considering how fast they were progressing. The reason being that they had been choosing the shortest route almost without hesitation. Answer. Spirit interference detected. Spirit communication conducted by a spirit wielder was found. Ah, so that's why. Spirit wielders were a special type of magic users that could command spirits. One of their magic skills was spirit communication, the ability to hear words spoken by the spirit. If they could communicate with wind or earth spirits, they would be able to find the right path leading to the stairs with ease. Since they could gain such information, things such as maze were meaningless for the spirit wielders. How cunning. Spirit wielders are so cunning. That said, they weren't breaking any rules. Depending on the different properties of the spirits they commanded, even if they used spirit communication, it wasn't a guaranteed way to learn the correct route. Essentially, there were very few spirit wielders out there, which was why I had never expected them to pull such a move on us. It was a totally justified way of progressing in the Labyrinth, so it didn't warrant a response from us. I even wanted to praise them for coming up with an idea like this. It looked like their team would continue to progress at a fast pace. For each floor they made it through, their latest exploits would be broadcasted throughout town. These people rapidly rose to fame. The name of their team was Green Rebellion, an elite task force led by a mysterious spirit wielder whose identity was a mystery. Their popularity was rivaling even that of the Shining led by Masayuki. As we had expected, powerful people began to gather here. Young and inexperienced challengers who dreamed of becoming famous and rich would trickle into town. And so, the number of challengers rose rapidly. The sales of the Labyrinth were finally taking off.